How's it going, everybody? This is Daniel. I am the host of Take the Pictures. I am joined today by the Psycho Boy Fodder. We're going to stroll down memory lane a little bit. We've got a lot to look at. Just a reminder for everybody who's listening to this instead of watching it, in the notes, you can click the there is a link where you could look at all the pictures. So as we're talking about them, you could be looking at them. It's also available on YouTube if you want to see everything in real time. But before we get in, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And is there anything you want to plug? Where can people find you?
Social media always at LOKEYS910 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Snapchat, any of them that you can think of. YouTube.com/psychoboyfodder. Over 90 matches and pieces of on there with a lot of your favorite wrestlers, all free matches, man. So go check them out. I appreciate it. And check me out right here.
Yeah.
Take the Pictures podcast.
I must say, I think Brian Myers is labeled the most professional wrestler, but I think that title should go to you because you're the only person that's getting your own graphics made, because we all know that not all promotions are created equal. You want to make sure that your brand doesn't change no matter where you're working. You brought in I don't know if you do it everywhere, but you brought in a different video crew for one of your matches. You're doing everything you can to make sure that your product is presented in the most professional way. And really appreciate that. I mean, obviously not everybody might have the means to do that, but I think a lot of people could take that note and kind of apply themselves in that regard, and the wrestling would be a lot better off.
Oh, I appreciate it. And, just to touch on that real quick, it's man, how you come across to other people is so important. So if you present yourself like you're a star, people will think you're a star.
Yeah.
I had that mentality too when I got into, I don't know if me and you ever had this conversation, but I had this conversation on some other podcast that I did, where, my mentality when I got into wrestling was, and granted, when I got into wrestling, I was much older. So I started training wrestling when I was 33. So I had already kind of built a life for myself outside of professional wrestling. But my mentality on wrestling is if I want to be a TV wrestler, then all I need to wrestle is TV wrestlers. And if all people see you wrestle is TV wrestlers, then they'll just start saying that guy's like a TV wrestler because all he wrestles is TV guys, right? And then before you know it, people who work at TV start recommending you to work at TV, and then all of a sudden you're actually working on TV, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing when you're presenting yourself on social media, or you want your matches to be a certain level of quality, and by quality I mean just the way they're presented, in the most professional way. And some people might see you for the first time, and you want that first time that they see you to go well, this guy, he looks good, all the graphics are good, he's already built an identity for himself. And that's the most important thing is, people you are what you present yourself as, perception is reality, right?
Yeah, that's something I've heard a lot, in my work life. Perception is reality, because for better or for worse, what people see is what exists. It doesn't matter what the truth is behind it. I kind of have the same view with this. Before I started podcasting, I made sure I had good equipment, because nobody's going to want to listen to it. First off, the first couple episodes were garbage. We had no idea what we were doing. But nobody's going to want to hear two guys that don't know what they're doing with a muffled microphone. So give yourself every chance to succeed. Present yourself as best as possible. So
100%.
Awesome. Well, we've got a presentation as far as bad segues go. We've got some pictures here that you provided. We've got some pictures here that I've found. I I will admit I did scroll back to the very first picture you ever posted on Twitter. Like we're going back with this.
Oh, that's
Uh,
great.
so
No telling what's there.
there's no telling. I will say you loved filters back in the
Oh
day.
yeah. So when like Instagram and like all that was like first coming out, like the filters just
Yeah,
like like I don't think like anybody had ever like had access to like when I say access, I mean like you didn't have like unless you were like somebody who's like working with like a professional photographer
yeah,
company, like nobody had access to just like take their pictures and just tweak them like however
mm,
they want, right?
yeah,
So when you I think like just getting that access where like you had like different kind of like photo apps and everything. Like there was a photo app. Man, I used to do all my pictures like this, so I know what photo filter you're talking about.
yeah.
But just like the raddest like photo filter ever, and I just would use it all the time on my photos.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have one that we could use as an example a little bit later on, but we'll hop in. So the first picture is one that you selected. So we'll just start off with that, and I'll let you explain the kind of the story and what's going on with it.
Sure. Okay, this picture right here is me, EC3, Space Cowboy, and Duke O'Connor is not pictured in this picture because he is driving. So we are we just got done at WrestleCade in 2022. Me, EC3, and Austin Aries wrestled CW Anderson, Brock Anderson, Preston Quinn with Arn Anderson in their corner, 6-man tag.
Mhm.
Very cool match. Ended with like Arn like punching Aries through the ropes and Aries taking the spine buster. We're leaving this show right here, hopping in the car, going straight down to Championship District Wrestling in Atlanta, where I'm going to be wrestling QT Marshall in the main event. And we will do the Psycho Love gimmick for the first time ever at this show. So this is we are driving there, and Lauren is on a plane to Atlanta at the same time. So we all meet there, and then
Yeah,
we do the deal. And probably till that time, funny story about QT. I love QT. I think he's great. Me and him have always got along very well. And we sat down that next day, and we were kind of talking about putting the match together.
yeah,
And QT is kind of a funny guy because like I can just tell like he's been doing it so long, like he just loves to test guys and like see how good they are.
uh-huh.
And he was like, "What are you thinking?" And like kind of lay something out to him or whatever. And we kind of knew like what the finish was going to be because there was Cole Carter was going to get involved, and Angelina was involved in the finish, and
Yeah,
I had that already laid out. But we were going over kind of the early stages of the match, and he goes, "Nothing that you said is wrong." He was like, "It lets me know that you know how to construct like a good match." He was like, "But." He was like, I'll just call it. We'll just talk out there. We'll just figure it out as we
yeah,
go. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm getting ready to do this match with QT. He's the vice president of AEW.
yeah,
He's just like, yeah, like we'll just like walk and talk out there, and like, we'll get it figured out to the cutoff. And then like, you can just like call your heat to me. Like, I know your couple like character spots that you're going to do. And like, it'll be all good, man. And I think working with a guy like him, like that really pushed me to get a lot better because that was one of the best matches I'd ever done up until that point.
yeah,
Probably, I'd say like at that point, that was the best match I'd ever done. And like 60% of it, like was just all us
yeah,
talking in the ring, and everything was just so fluid and just moved so well. So credit to him for kind of pushing me because, most guys now are like laying out every single thing.
yeah,
Uh, and me learning that from him was kind of like, okay, like I can kind of have like a small base of what I'm gonna do,
yeah,
and then like I can just like change things while I'm out there, if you'll talk, and a lot of guys don't talk now either. So it's kind of like, it's almost like a lost art. And then when you actually find people that can do it, it's really
Mhm.
good. It works out really good.
Have you found yourself like trying to lean more towards doing that in your like regular everyday matches now? Like,
Oh yeah, like I mean, like I tell guys like now, like I have like my highlight character spots that I'm gonna
um,
get in. Like they need to know what to do when I'm doing those.
uh,
Um, but like a lot of times, like you know, things like hope spots for the baby face or just like the heat in general. Like I'm just like calling it all out there, man, to the guy most of the time, unless it's like some like cool little spot that like he wants to do that I'm not like familiar,
yeah,
like super familiar, like um maybe the way he does a move or
yeah,
something like, we might go over something like that. But I love like kind of just doing whatever, man.
yeah.
And like I worked Dango on Sunday,
Mhm,
and like we literally called like, you know, I'd say, man, we called 30% of the match.
mhm,
And then, like the rest of it, he was just like, yeah, like we'll just like do whatever. Like we literally had the match put together in less than 5 minutes, like when he got there.
yeah,
Uh, and it was like one of the most fun, easy matches I've ever done. I mean, it made that the match that I did with Dango may be one of the easiest matches I've ever done in my entire career.
yeah. And, like, obviously, like you talked about, like if you're only wrestling guys that are on TV, people are gonna think you deserve to be on TV. But like the caliber of opponent that you have had over your career is kind of insane. So like you have somebody like that, and then you have that experience when you've been in the ring with guys from all different styles of all different like promotions and stuff. It's got to be pretty easy once you kind of get in there, especially when you're in there with a pro like Dago.
Oh yeah, I mean, like when you're working when you're working like pros that have been working for like 15 or 20 years, like
Yeah.
me had a really good match at All Star Wrestling in West Virginia. That's on my YouTube channel. You can check it out. The Dango match will probably be up there tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, and man, like it was like, I'd say probably 90% of the match, like I kind of had like in my head before I got there. And like I was just kind of like running it by Heath, and he was like, damn, baby, you just make it so easy, man. He was
Yeah.
like, go out here and just like do this shit. And we went out there, and that's one of like the best matches I've ever done too. Was like, I'd say like QT, Heath, Dango, guys that just make it like really, like they're not trying to do a lot of like overly
Yeah.
complicated, um I don't know the best way to put it. It's like, you know I mean, because the guys who do the really complicated stuff that do it really well, I mean, lots of times I just watch that stuff in amazement, man, because I'm just, oh, like this is like, it's awesome, like guys like Young Bucks and like
Mhm.
Pentagon, and those kind of guys. Those guys do. I think it's so amazing too, right? Because like if you watch those guys do like a 30-minute match,
Yeah.
oh my god, like I cannot believe these guys like remember all this shit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They're hitting like everything right on point, and it's all timed perfectly, and that just speaks to how talented those guys are. But my favorite style of wrestling is like 95 WWF.
Yeah.
So I try to do a lot of my matches um in that style. And like, we can like, you can work around, different guys' styles. Like, a couple of weeks ago I worked Matt Sydal, and like we had a really good match. And it's like, he does all like the cool like stuff, the kicks and the flips and the hurricane ranas and all that. And I'm just like, brother, just tell me where to be and I'll be there for you, man.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's my job to make you to help you hit all your stuff and make your shit look good and make you look cool, and then when we get to my style of the match, it's like, man, all you gotta do is sell for me, brother.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely we'll see some of the other pictures. We'll kind of like continue to tell this. Right, so let's hop into this next picture. This is actually the very first picture that you ever had on Twitter. I went all the way
All
back
right.
to the very beginning, and it may be a side that a lot of people don't know about the fodder.
Oh, this is great. Okay, so this is a mixtape that I did with DJ Big Mike and DJ Woogie called American Greed. The way I structured this mixtape, if anybody can, so Dat Piff was like a big hip hop mixtape website, and
Uh-huh.
they like all of my mixtapes were on like Dat Piff and like live mixtapes, and a lot of those sites are like shut down now. And I don't like, the last I heard was like those sites got shut down because of like bandwidth issues and they couldn't afford
Mm.
it, or like they didn't have enough advertising anymore to like keep them going or whatever. But this mixtape right here was, I did hip hop music from probably the time I was 15 or 16 years old until I was 24.
Yeah.
Um, and this was the very last mixtape I did in 2012. So this mixtape, I had, I think I had Killa Callione on this mixtape. I had Fred the Godson on this mixtape. Rest in peace. Um, gosh, French Montana was on this mixtape. I believe Killer Mike was on this mixtape. I may be confusing this and another mixtape I did called The Green Hornet, but like all these guys, I have songs
Yeah.
with. Um, but this was a great mixtape. I always wanted to work with DJ Big Mike. Big Mike, like when I was coming up, DJ Big Mike, DJ K Slay, DJ Clue, they were all like the biggest DJs. So like during this time, for me to be able to work with like a Big Mike or a DJ Woogie or like a DJ Who Kid, like somebody like that was like
Yeah.
really me, you know. Oh, and I think Prodigy is on this mixtape too. I think the song that I did with Prodigy is on this mixtape too.
Yeah. And like I've listened to it. Like I like some people are like, oh, I did rap. Like you can say like Macho Man Randy Savage did rap technically, but like
Right.
you're prolific. Like there is a lot of music out there that you've created just on YouTube alone. I think you had one mixtape that was like Glee themed. That was
Oh, the Glee TV show where I had like recreated the cover or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like so like when I was doing music, like music during that period of time was like transitioning from like guys getting like physical copies of their mixtapes made and
um,
then like pumping them out of their trunk to like now all the like I kind of caught like the internet wave of music right before like the internet wave took off, and that's what took me off.
mhm,
um so like, man, I could, now that I think about it, like I could have gave you like all the magazine like stills from like when I was in the Source and like Double
mhm,
XL and like Hip Hop Weekly. I could have probably gave you all that stuff too. I didn't even think about it, but you know, the the internet wave was kind of like its own thing. So like music kind of turned into like that you would create mixtapes that would go on the internet. And as you were kind of gearing up to like drop the mixtapes or whatever, you would kind of funnel the music out for free, like to all like the rap blogs. So
uh-huh,
like that time there was like, um, there was like websites like Sermon's Domain who kind of helped me get my start. Like Two Dope Boys, like Nah Right, all these different
yeah,
like kind of like rap blog websites, and all they would do is just cover music. So getting your music on these blogs became like a real task for a lot of people, and I had already built relationships with a lot of these guys. So anytime I would drop a song, like on Twitter, like I'd have like 50 websites like in a day that would just pick up like a new freestyle or a new song that I was
yeah,
dropping. And like my music was just everywhere. Like that's how I originally got verified on Twitter. Was that I had went to New York, and I like this is around the time when like Mac Miller and like Machine Gun Kelly and like all of those guys were kind of like me and like them were all kind of like coming up at the same time.
yeah,
And I had went to New York, and like at this period of time, like I was a little bit heavier. And this is all kind of like what got me into doing bodybuilding too. I went to New York and I met with this guy named Sal Bonaventure who worked for this company called the 10 Agency. And the 10 Agency was a company. I think they were um like distributed like through Universal,
yeah,
and they did all the bookings for the artists for like all the late night TV shows like David Letterman and all of that. And they did all of the music casting for like all of the reality TV shows at the time.
Mm.
So like I met with these guys and they were like, oh, like they had like a room full of people. Like when me and the guy who was managing me at the time, we go up there, they got a whole room full of people. They're playing all of the music. They're like, oh, like we love it. Da, 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 da. So before I leave, he basically just told me, he was like, yo, we like you, you're talented, but like we're in the business of selling images and music. And he was basically like, if you were essentially 50 to 60 pounds less in weight,
Yeah.
you would be perfect. So like we need you to lose weight is basically what they told me.
Mm.
And I went back and I kind of hired like a, I tried to like hire like a personal trainer or like a guy to like help me like with my diet and stuff like that. And I ended up meeting a guy in the gym who he helped me with my diet and everything. And what's so crazy, man, is like the more I started doing that, because music, there's a lot of politics in music.
Yeah.
And it's all about who you know, right? So like just like how you get your music on blogs and like everything is just relationship built. Like, you know, probably like anything else, right?
Yeah.
And I just remembered when I would go to the gym and I would like follow my diet and train real hard and like the results that I would see from that, I was like, man, you know, like I'm really in control of this. Like nobody can take this from me. Like unless I have like some kind of like catastrophic health issue and or an injury, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, like I'm solely in control of like whether I follow my diet, whether I, you know, go to the gym, whether I do my cardio. And I just kind of became addicted to that. And I was just, man, I was so over music at the time too, man, because like it was just that same cycle where you're like creating, you know, creating music for it to go on the blogs, and then while you're creating new music you're shooting videos for like the old music that you just released. And it's just kind of like you're like a hamster on a wheel, like doing that
Yeah.
over and over. And then, you know, just traveling to like do all these shows like a South by Southwest or like the AC3 festival, you know, shows we were doing like in Philly and stuff like that with my man Young Bliss. And it really wears you out. Like that physically wears you out worse than like doing the wrestling does. Because like you're, I think just your health is just more at risk, right? Because like you're like not getting no sleep, you're drinking, you're smoking, you're just traveling, and just everything involved with it was just kind of like, I'd say like physically bringing me down.
Yeah.
And then when I got into like the bodybuilding and like, you know, focusing on my diet and all of that, like that kind of just gave me something that I was in control of that was physically bringing me up.
Yeah.
um and that was just, you know, that was kind of like my experience like with the music. I mean, I would never trade it for anything, because it was like, you know, like Mob Deep was like my favorite, you know, group like growing up, like Mob Deep and DMX and Jay-Z. And like, you know, for me to like do a song with Prodigy, that was like an all-time like
Yeah.
fucking huge thing, you know.
That's awesome. Do you ever like miss it, or is there ever like a itch to get back or do anything with it?
Nah, man, I don't miss it at all, man. Cause like, you know, a lot of my homeboys, man, still have like, you know, they're having a lot of success with it now. Like my man Rain, he signed to Rick Ross right now. Like me and him used to live together,
Yeah.
and you know, we've been friends, you know, for probably almost 20 years. And like, you know, I can see him do it. And I love to watch him be successful at it, right? Because like now I kind of figured like this is gonna sound weird, but like everything I've ever done in my entire life led me to do wrestling.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would have never, like had I not done the music, I would have never learned the tactics on how to promote myself, because I was promoting myself as an artist. But had I never done that, I wouldn't have learned how to promote myself. And then I would have never had that push to go like get in like great shape.
Yeah.
And then had I never done the bodybuilding, you know, I could have never moved into the space in wrestling where people were like, okay, like you got like a great body, you got a great look, like all you got to do is learn how to wrestle.
Mm.
And then things will should work out for you, okay, man, because wrestling is a lot about how you look too, right? For
Oh yeah,
a lot of companies. So like everything is just kind of like leading me to this one point, like where like music, you're performing in front of crowds. Wrestling, you're performing in front of crowds. Music, you're trying to entertain people. Wrestling, you're trying to entertain people. Music, you're trying to promote yourself as an artist. Wrestling, you're doing the same thing. You are a commodity.
yeah, of course. Travel and all that stuff too, and
Oh
uh,
yeah.
yeah. So that is awesome. This next picture that we have, I think we have to have you back on just to talk about your music career at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm down. Yeah,
yeah,
anytime.
I feel like that's like a whole would barely scratch the surface. Um, but we'll go from this picture, which a lot of people you could say is the catalyst for wrestling, and then we kind of go to this next picture, which kind of shows more recently where you're at in wrestling. So tell me a little bit more about this picture.
Okay, so this picture is when EC3 got released from WWE.
Oh, sorry,
The
spoiler alert.
It's fine. So EC3, when he got released from WWE, he um I knew EC3 from my work in the supplement industry. That's how I met him. And we just kind of would talk all the time about like lifting and supplements and all that kind of stuff. When I started doing the wrestling, I kind of talked to him a little bit about it, but not much. And then one day he just messaged me and he was like, hey, like, I'm doing this thing. Um, would you like to be a part of it?
Yeah,
And this was on a Wednesday, so this was my very first taste of like everything in wrestling is like not planned. It's totally chaotic.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
always at the last minute, and you know you have to take the opportunities or you miss the opportunities, right? So he hits me up on that Wednesday, and I'm like, oh, okay, like cool. Like when you thinking about doing it or whatever? And he's like, well, I need you to be in Orlando on Saturday. And I was like, okay, man, like I'll book a plane ticket and come, man. So I went to Orlando. We shot this whole like kind of cinematic, almost like a cinematic vignette.
Yeah.
And that ended up airing on Impact. And when I was at this particular um, shoot that we were doing, that's where I met Moose for the first time. That's where I met Braun Strowman for the first time.
Mm.
That's where I met Spud. I mean, there were just so many like guys there that were just kind of like they're just hanging out, just watching it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like my first taste of like, oh, okay, like maybe I don't even think I had actually had a match in front of a crowd here.
Yeah.
Uh, but that was like my first taste of like, okay, like this is like a big budget wrestling thing.
Mm.
And like it's me and like this guy who's like been like the TNA world champion for many years and like NXT and WWE, and like I'm wrestling this guy. And like they got agents there that are like walking me through the whole thing because like the way it had to be shot was like the cameraman was like in the ring and
Mm.
like everything had to be done in one take for the kind of cinematic style that they were shooting it in. Uh, and I mean, that was just kind of the time and the moment that let me know, like, okay, so this is really something that if I apply myself and I give it 100%, I might can do something here.
Yeah. Do you think this kind of gave you the fuel to kind of like go at it full speed moving forward? Like, I know you just said
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I always tell people, man, those little inches of progress that you make when you're doing something, that gives you all the momentum to continue on. So it's like just always seeing those little bits of progress,
Mhm.
uh, you know, continue to push you in that direction, um, to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Right. Awesome. So we've got this like kind of the pictures that you've picked, it seems like are very important and they have like a timeline that they're telling. The pictures that I'm picking, there's a theme that maybe is not the same, but I have this next picture. I noticed a theme of muffins with you. Um,
Yeah,
so
oh yeah.
Do you know the Muffin Man? Tell me a little bit more about you and your love of muffins. And this is for those who are wondering, this is kind of a taste of what that filter looks like that we were talking about
Yeah,
earlier.
exactly. I don't know what the name of this filter is. You know what the name of this filter is? I know now. Um, Instagram used to have just a filter you could choose. It was called HDR.
Uh-huh.
That's and I just love this filter because I don't know, it just kind of like made everything like pop on the photos
Uh-huh.
for some reason. So I used it a lot. Um, but muffins are a common food used in the bodybuilding world. So when you are like dieting for a show or something like that, your coach may have you eat like a muffin pre-workout as kind of like a like when you're dieting for a show, you're very depleted all the time because you're doing cardio and like you're training and like the food is a lot lower than it would normally be.
Yeah.
uh, so the muffins are the muffins when you're dieting really hard for a show. The muffins are everything, because you can like cut them in half and like kind of throw them on the pan a little bit and kind of like warm them up. And these particular muffins, I'm sure you're familiar because you're a North Carolina boy. Harris Teeter
Yeah.
absolutely has the best muffins. These muffins right here, I don't know what they are now, but in this picture, this was probably a 2013 maybe picture. And at Harris Teeter, they have these great muffins. They're like probably like $6 now or $7 for a 4-pack. And they use like these like little sugar crystals like on the
Mm.
top.
Yeah.
They're totally amazing. They're the best muffins you'll ever eat.
Are you like a classic blueberry muffin guy?
Yeah, so normally I would always get the blueberry muffins or I would get the chocolate chip muffins. But later down the line, um, those lemon poppy muffins with the sugar
Oh,
on top.
those are
Super,
underrated.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm a long time proponent of lemon poppy seed. Um,
they're absolutely fantastic.
yeah. Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. Are you still a muffin the muffin man? Is that still a part of your
Man, I changed more into like the cereal man now. So I'm big on the cereal now. Cereal after the workout. So like I use um, typically any cereal that has 1.5 grams of fat or less
uh-huh.
in it. Um, and I usually have 100 grams of carbs post workout. And I use the egg whites that are in the carton because they're
Mhm.
pasteurized. I use those as like the milk in the cereal. And I grew up on skim milk.
Uh-huh.
So and I don't know if you've ever drunk or drank skim milk, but skim milk just tastes like water.
Yeah.
And that's what liquid egg whites taste like too. So it's kind of like I just utilize like the egg whites as like the milk. So I'll have like, uh, 2 cups of egg whites, which is about 50 grams of protein, and then like 100 grams of carbs from the cereal. And when you eat it post workout, your body can utilize like the like quick acting sugars and the carbohydrates more efficiently than like if you're just eating them at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something.
Yeah. We are very different people. I had Lucky Charms the other night, like as dessert, and you're
If
like, "Mhm."
if you're gonna go the Lucky Charms route, I just suggest trying the Lucky Charms s'mores.
Okay.
It's like a new combination, so it's got like the graham cracker um, bits in with the chocolate Lucky Charms and the marshmallows.
Okay, that sounds much better because we're if you're eating Lucky Charms, it's for the marshmallows. It's not for the little whatever you call them.
But if you hit up Amazon, you can just get like the all
I've
marshmallows.
seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's only for the real right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of real, this next picture, we've got you and a legend of sorts. We'll hop into that. We've got a nasty boy with the psycho boy.
So this was a picture that was taken in Tampa, Florida, Egypt Shrine Center. Me versus Tom Latimer kendo stick match on pay-per-view. My very first match on pay-per-view. I got to the hotel and me and my wife got into our hotel room. I went down for maybe 10 or 15 minutes just to kind of hang with like the boys like Carrie and like
Yeah.
Thrillbilly and some of the guys down there. And Carrie, I thought he was kind of like ribbing me. He was like, "Oh man," he's like, "They're probably gonna have you like open the pay-per-view tomorrow." And I was like, "Nah." I was like, "They wouldn't have me. They wouldn't have the kendo stick match first. Get to the building, of course. Kendo stick match open in the pay-per-view. I'm like, okay, we got Dr. Tom as the agent on the match. Get the whole deal put together. Everybody was very thrilled with it. It was like a really hot opening match
Mhm.
for the pay per view. I think we ended up going like 8 minutes. Um, One of my favorite matches, not just because it was like my first ever pay per view match.
Yeah.
This was right after the match when I had got changed and stuff like that. And, you know, Nasty Boy, Brian Knobs comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "I heard this was your first pay-per-view match." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude," he's like, "You did great." He's like, "You fucking killed it, man." He was like, "I sat right back here at the monitor and watched the whole thing, man." He's like, "You killed it, dude." And I was like, "Oh man," like, and for me, man, that's like, holy shit, man. Like, I grew up watching the Nasty Boys, dude, on fucking Coliseum home video.
Uh-huh.
And to have, I don't even know what Brian Knobs was even doing there other than just like hanging out, right? But just to have him come up to me and like acknowledge me and talk to me and say like, "Oh man, like you did such a great job, like I love the match," and that meant the world to me, man, because it's like, you know when you're training to wrestle, um like everybody's like goal, right, is like, "Oh, like I want to get a job like working on television and I want to do
Mhm.
pay-per-views and all that," right? um but when that actually happens and you have like these cool moments, right, where you're like, "Holy shit, like I used to watch this guy on Coliseum home video on
Yeah.
TV, when I was a kid, and he's coming up to me now telling me like, 'Oh man, like your shit was great, like I love watching your match, like
Uh,
be real proud of yourself.'" That is that's what you do it for.
yeah.
That's 100%, like that's what you do it for, man. So like that is for sure like a night I won't ever forget.
Yeah. That is awesome. I I never really got into the Nasty Boys. I wasn't like watching at the time. I do think that their like aesthetic was really cool, like the kind of Van Halen paint splatter and all that kind of stuff, and the
Right, right.
sunglasses. But yeah, that's awesome, especially like as a kid, like watching somebody and then now they're watching you. That's got to be a pretty cool moment.
Oh man, most definitely, man. And it's just when you have those moments, you're just like I can't even believe that that happened, right? Like, I never even put this picture on the internet.
Yeah,
Um, just because like I don't know, man, like, it's like I have so many pictures in my phone from like cool moments and just things that happened that like I know about them, like my wife knows about them, or and like my family knows about them, but like I just never like felt the need to like, oh, like I need to put this up and like everybody needs to know about it.
yeah,
And when I had to hit you up and we were talking about doing the podcast, I wanted to send you like pictures that we could talk about that like I
uh-huh,
had never shared anywhere.
yeah. That's awesome. I remember you telling the story the first time you came on our podcast. I think it was just right after the match you had with Tom. So it's cool to come first full circle and kind of see the picture and kind of talk more about the moment, especially now that you've had some more success after that. We're gonna jump back a little bit with this next picture to your bodybuilding competition days.
Sweet.
Um, there we go. Absolutely shredded. Um,
Thank you.
I I don't know much about bodybuilding. I do know that the tanning oil is a big deal. Um, but it's always like a stark contrast between like seeing the person not in competition and outside of it. What is the process like for the tanning oil? Is it like a special oil or how does that work?
No, like normally, so like just a little history on this picture. This picture was a show. It was the 2015 Elite Muscle Heat bodybuilding competition. This is where I got qualified for to move to the national level in bodybuilding. Um, Here I was probably 172 pounds. Um, I won this show. I was first place in this show. And when you, so like, I am super pale white. I'm sure you know this, right?
Yeah.
The only reason that I can get away with being like super pale white in wrestling and actually being able to do that on TV is because I have like my whole entire upper half is covered with tattoos, right?
Yeah.
So when you go get tanned like for the bodybuilding competition, basically like you just go in and like they have like an entire like hotel room or like a double room like dedicated to like just tanning the competitors. So like I'll just go in there, I'll wear like some like regular like spandex like boxer shorts or whatever, and you just go in, man, and they'll like spray you with one coat of the tannin solution, and then you'll let that dry, and then you come back and then they spray you with another coat and you let that dry and you're just like good to go. Downsides about the tan stinks, it smells awful, and you can't lay in the hotel bed, so because you can't mess the sheets up, right?
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10 I would pull all the sheets off the hotel bed, um, or I would just bring like my own like blanket from like home and I would just like lay on the floor like the night before the show. And the best part of like putting it on is being able to get in the shower and take it off, dude, because it's part of the show. You know, what the tan does is the tan helps when the lighting, when the judges sit below you, so they
Uh,
always look up to you. And then when you're under the lighting, the tanning just helps show the detail on your body better.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So it comes right off in the shower?
It comes off if you use like I would use there's like it's like some kind of like sugar scrub.
Mhm.
But you definitely have to use that. I mean it would, I mean like you would get the majority of the tan off, but you still have like kind of like a film on it.
Yeah.
Like I'd still be tan for like a week after.
Mhm.
Just I just wouldn't have like the nasty, heavy competition coat on.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it kind of just like bleeds into your skin.
In wrestling, there's tanning is a big deal in wrestling as well, but I've noticed like especially like somebody like MJF, you can
Mhm.
tell when somebody like has like the tan everywhere and then their hands are just like extra tan. Do you have any advice to wrestlers who are looking to kind of tan?
So get your tan a week prior to the show. Um, get one or two coats, let it dry, wash it off the next morning, and then by the time the show comes a week later, you'll have a perfect tan.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that like they're like tanning is a huge deal, like especially like on the TV product level. But I know that there's some guys like I think Drew Hood just started posting about how he was tanning and stuff. And like people that are trying to take that next step are kind of like looking.
If you are trying to take the next step in tannin, this is a little taboo, but I can tell you it works. It's the only thing that ever tanned me. Is they make tannin injections. It's called Melanotan 2. It's a peptide. It comes in a very small little vial. It's got a little bit of white powder in it. You mix a little bit of bacteriostatic water in it, and you just do a little bit of the Melanotan 2 within like an insulin pen, like in your stomach.
Uh,
Um, Taking like insulin for like diabetes or something. And what it will do is it will raise the melanin in your skin, and it will make it very easy for you to tan. So like once I used it for about 5 or 6 months, and man, I had a great tan all the time. And like
Yeah,
once you get yourself kind of like at the tan level that you want, you could go like once, maybe twice a week for like 10 or 15 minutes, and you could just maintain that tan all the time.
it's awesome. So it's like steroids for tanning.
Yeah, it's more like it's like a peptide
Okay,
almost. Yeah.
interesting. Is that like legal, or you said it's taboo?
It's kind of like it's like a gray area thing. Like it's not legal or illegal.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those things. Like if you know where to get it, you can get it, and like there's no like real like side effects to it. My opinion on that, this is just my opinion, is that uh, a lot of the research on it, at least the research that I've done on it,
Uh-huh.
uh, showed that using the melanotan, um, and just kind of like going out in the sun, um, it aided in preventing skin cancer. So that was a lot of like the research studies that were done on it. And I always believe that like things that like could actually like help prevent or cure diseases are always like withheld and never made legal.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because the pharmaceutical companies got to make their money, and if
Got to make their bread, brother.
yeah,
So if it's anything that's going to stop bread, I mean, even a little bit, it's
yeah,
probably never gonna be sold.
yeah, I can definitely see that. This next picture I thought was interesting because it's a picture of you in the ring with EC3, but this is not the typical fodder attire that we're used to seeing. This is you in
Right.
tights, headbands, elbow pads. Walk us through this.
Okay. So when I first started wrestling, I really, it's like everybody, like when you're like training or you're like going to wrestling school, they're like, oh, like you got to be, you got to figure out who you are, figure out who your character is, and like this, that, and the third. And I had absolutely no clue who I would be in the wrestling ring. So this gimmick is kind of like a like WWE 2K like create a player
Yeah,
gimmick a little bit, right?
yeah.
So my gimmick name there was Alpha Ace, and I was in a tag team with a pal of mine, G Money,
Uh,
and I had already done the EC3 stuff here. And what EC3 wanted to do was he was like, I have to have a story to tell where I have to take you out of this shitty gimmick that you're doing, and you need to be fodder. So like the fodder thing, like the name fodder actually comes from like if you watch that first cinematic fight that we did, the BNEC3 did, in the end, the credits, it says like starring Merton Woolard as the fodder, right? Which basically means like the food or the prey, like for EC3, right? Because he's just
yeah,
like around in the video, right?
yeah,
So we got to talking, and he was like, "Look, he's like, I'm gonna do like this full scale, like hour and a half. It's gonna be like a cinematic wrestling, like movie type thing." And that's where the free the thing came from. And he was like, "I got all these guys like that are gonna do it, like Matt Cardona and Moose and Matt Seidel and all these guys."
mm,
And he was like, I think you should wrestle John Schuyler in this thing. He was like, but I gotta have a way to get you out of this really shitty gimmick that you're doing where
yeah,
you can just be fodder all the time. And I was like, I don't know, man, about this fodder name because it just sounded weird. And I was just like, I don't know, it doesn't come off the tongue right. And like certain names like just come off the tongue, right? Like, and they're
uh,
just like Razor Ramon, like that's easy to like.
yeah,
It sounds right.
yeah,
Um, and when he was like, "You're gonna be fodder," and I was just like, like that's a terrible name.
yeah,
Who would have that name? Like that name sucks." And he was like, "Nah, man." He was like, "It's a cool name. I think so." And then so we did that match, and in that match I was Alpha Ace, and of course, like he goes over on me, and then he cuts this super long promo on me,
uh,
and he's like, you know, to be in the narrative or to be part of the narrative, you have, the whole point of that is to become who you're supposed to be. And he was like, you're not Alpha Ace. He's like, you're Fodder. And after that, once we did this, which is the picture you're showing now
Yeah.
of me wrestling John Schuyler, um, after this match and after this thing aired,
Uh-huh.
and I actually started getting requests to like wrestle places.
Hmm.
But nobody ever hit me up to be Alpha Ace. Like everybody was hitting me up like, can we get Fodder to come like,
Yeah.
and in this Free the Narrative cinematic wrestling film, like whatever you want to call it. That's where EC3 kind of gave me the name. He was like, you're going to be Psycho Boy Fodder. EC3 actually had these shirts made that were called, it just said Psycho Boy on the shirt.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, I think you're just going to be like Psycho Boy Fodder. And I was like, oh, that's not like a bad name, you know? Um, and I did this match with Skyler. And I remember I was super nervous to wrestle Skyler because he was like the first guy I was ever going to wrestle that was actually like on television.
Hmm.
Um, and Skyler sometimes like walks around and he just like never looks happy. He's just like even when he is happy, like sometimes he just looks like he's just not happy.
Yeah.
Uh, man, we put that match together, and that when I wrestled him in this match is when I actually had the light bulb moment go off in my head. And I have a copy of this match that's like totally unedited. So like when we film these matches for the narrative, we just shot them like regular wrestling matches. Now there was like obviously like workers who played the crowd in this thing.
Hmm.
But in this, like we just shot it like a normal wrestling match. So like I have this match. They had 3 cameras there. So they had the cameraman that was in the ring, one that was on the side, and then one that was kind of like a hard cam, right? And the final product, they kind of edited it together like a cinematic match, right?
Yeah.
But the match we actually did just like a regular normal wrestling match. And when I went back and watched it, I just watched him, and man, he just led me all around that ring. The way he sold, just everything. He called every spot in that match 2 spots ahead of time. And I never missed a beat. I mean, like in that match, like I mean, like I look like he could not have made me look any better.
Yeah.
In that match. I mean, Skyler is a total pro. He's one of the best wrestlers I've ever been in the ring with. Um, and he deserves to be working anywhere, man, because he is a unbelievable talent, and he is unbelievable in terms of being able to take guys who like halfway got a fucking clue
Uh-huh.
and take them and make them look like $1,000,000. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what he did for me, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah. I'm not drawing this comparison to you, but I know you're a Bret Hart guy. Have you heard of like the lost Tom McGee tape where Bret Hart wrestled Tom McGee, and he got signed? They thought he was like the next Hulk Hogan, and he got in
Yeah.
the ring.
Yes, he made him look so good, like right that like everybody
Yeah.
was, and this guy's like totally unbelievable. We need to sign him.
And then he kind of shit the bed. Different case with you, but yeah, definitely pros like that. John Schuyler is definitely one of them. Speaking of pros, this next picture is one that you provided with one of, I'd say, like when people think wrestling, Hulk Hogan is typically who they're going to think of.
Yep. So this is me, my wife's son David, and Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Brother. Um, so the day before this, we had got married.
Uh-huh.
We were in Tampa, Florida, and Ricky Morton was actually in my wedding party. So like my wedding party was EC3, who was my best man, Tom Latimer, who's always been like a true good stand-up brother, who I respect a ton. Weston Blake, another guy who I totally respect a ton. I mean, me and him have just totally beat the hell out of each other in many matches. And Ricky Morton, who I absolutely love and adore. He is somebody who has done so much stuff for me and never asked me for anything. Um, all of the things that he's done for me, I could never repay him. And he calls me up Monday morning and he's like, "Hey, Fodder," he's like, "You want to go hang out with fucking Hulk Hogan tonight?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to hang out with fucking Hulk Hogan." Now, my wife worked with Hogan at TNA, right?
Yeah.
So, she already knew Hogan a ton. But he was like, "All right," he was like, "How about like me and you and EC3 and we'll all meet down there." And Ricky's wife was down there, and because I mean everybody was down there for our wedding.
Yeah.
And man, we went to Hogan's hangout. He shut the joint down. Man, we did karaoke. Hogan's kid was there, Nick Hogan and his girlfriend. And man, there is a video. It is on my Twitter of EC3 karaokeing Real American in front of Hulk Hogan. I shot the video. It's one of the
Yeah.
greatest videos ever shot. And Jimmy Hart was there. I mean, dude, we had a total blast, man. I mean, they gave us everything on the house. Don Perignon. I mean, Hogan just took massive care of us. He's the ultimate brother. And just before we got out of there. He gave David milkshake shots, and it was just a total blast. And he chatted with us for quite a while, and we took pictures, and we met his wife. He had just got married like a month prior to
Yeah.
us. So just a super cool moment, man. He's a super cool guy, and much love to him for taking the time and having us come out and have a good time. This picture is from the same day.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I figured that'd be a nice segue to hop into this one.
Yeah, man. I mean, just like, man, like hanging out with Jimmy Hart, and man, dude, it's just man. I mean, dude, like again, like like man, I watched Ricky Morton growing up, like
Yeah.
that my wedding. Totally like could
Yeah.
never like have even fathomed something like that being possible. Jimmy Hart, another guy, watched him when I grew up, and like just to sit around and like kick it with Jimmy Hart and
Yeah.
just bullshit with him,
Yeah.
um, you know, just super cool time. And like, obviously like having my wife there and like, her son and there's, I couldn't have asked for like a better like lead up to the
Yep.
wedding, right after the wedding. I mean, it was just the ultimate time.
I have a question, and it's something that I've posed to a few people.
Sure.
Uh, does Jimmy Hart, did he look like an old man in the 80s, or does he look like a young man in 2024?
Still a young man in 2024.
Because he looks the exact same.
Totally looks exactly the same. I mean, it's like Jimmy Hart doesn't age.
No, it does not. Yeah, I saw him. It was I think you were at the AML show. I think you were like in the scramble where he came out. Um,
Oh, we did the doors, ladders, and chairs match this
yeah, yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the same show, and I was seeing that, and I was like, yeah, he looks exactly the same. So I don't know if he looked old back then, or if he just still looks young today. But you've been up there up close, so I'll take your word for it.
Right
Um,
on.
this next picture, make sure I get to the right one. Right here. This is cool. EC3 common theme in all of these. You've got EC3 um, going in for the scissor right in front of Daddy Ass.
Totally wild moment. This was at Championship District Wrestling. Shout out to my man Jameson Ryan, Diamond Sheik, QT Marshall. Those guys were putting these shows together. We worked a program. It's I want to say this too, man. Like it's always cool, like man, um when guys believe in your talent,
Yeah.
right? Um, and they believe that like you can hang like in the main event spots. And I met Jameson Ryan. Jameson does the gimmick with the Iron Savages now.
Okay.
Um, so he's kind of like he does like when they do like the six mans, he's in the six mans, and then he also does like kind of like the manager hype man
Mhm.
type deal. And me and him actually met each other. I was doing a bunch of shots with AEW, and so was he. And we were doing one of the tapings together, and we were actually slotted to do a match, I think. And then Tony Khan had like this idea that he wanted to do. Uh, he had JD Drake work in Orange Cassidy, and he had an idea where he was like, "Oh, like, do you remember like back like in Memphis wrestling when the heel used to come out with like the two guys like in like the ninja masks or like the luchador masks, right?
Yeah.
They would just wear all black and they would just have the mask, like the lucha mask on, right? And he wanted to do something like that with JD Drake, but like I mean, at least the way it was explained to me was like he was just like I need like some jacked up guys, right? So
Yeah.
they gave us that spot, and we like came out with JD Drake, and man, we had like so many like spots like with Orange Cassidy where he'd get chucked to the outside, and we'd like beat him up, and we were like hitting like lucha rolls on the outside like for the camera and stuff. So that's how I met Jameson. And then when they started running this promotion down in Atlanta, he kind of hit me up and was like, "Hey man, like, you know, do you think maybe you'd want to come down and like do some stuff?" And we started doing this program where I worked Nick Camarado in the main event. And I basically like the CYN guys like
Mm.
up Nick Camarado, and I challenged QT Marshall to the match, and then like me and QT Marshall have our match, and then like EC3 is like a surprise guest. He comes out, and here comes Daddy Ass to save QT Marshall because we're about
Yeah.
to beat Marshall, and that's what set this particular matchup, which was me and EC3 versus legendary Daddy Ass and QT Marshall. Billy Gunn, another guy who I watched on TV.
Yeah.
Um, Billy Gunn and my wife obviously did the Beautiful People gimmick together when he was the manager, when he was Q Kip.
Uh-huh.
Um, so just all of it kind of like played so well together. And then just to be able to like wrestle him and have a match with him. If you go watch this is on my YouTube channel. QT Marshall actually uses the acclaimed music and cuts a rap on me and EC3.
Amazing.
It's totally awesome. Uh, we do the tag match. Tag match is what it is. Great, fun, easy match. Crowd was into it. And this particular spot, we had QT Marshall down. We hit the scissors on Daddy Ass. QT Marshall slides through me and EC3, makes the hot tag to Billy Gunn, and we're rocking and rolling.
That's awesome. Yeah, perfect picture, by the way. The way it's taken and posed with him in the background, it's one in a million.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, this was like I actually like had this hung up. I mean, you know, I just showed you
Yeah,
our wrestling layer here. I have that picture hung up because that was just you know, it's not only cool to do it and to be involved in the match and have the main event spot and do something like that with Billy Gunn, but it's also cool to do it with like my best friend EC3 too. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Guy who got me in the game and kind of got me like um known enough to be able to be put in spots like this.
That is awesome. This next picture is with EC3 as well. A little bit different.
Yeah. This man, we're just goofing off here. We were at NWA Nashville Skyway Studios. It's me, EC3, Matt Taven. I think we were on like a 3-day tape and loop here. And we were just always talking about like how many like cowboys were at NWA.
Yeah.
We just like there were like all these like cowboy hats laying around, and man, we just threw the cowboy hats on and like took the picture. And I don't know if this picture ever got posted on the internet, but so that it never got posted by me, so that's why I gave it to you because I
Yeah,
thought it was
awesome. If you had to give this faction a name, what would you label it?
the new smoking guns,
I like it.
maybe the smokiest guns.
The smokiest guns. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Matt, cool brother.
Yeah. We need somebody to book that match. Speaking of cool brother, this next picture is, I would arguably say, the final boss of North Carolina, like
Boss, yes sir.
George South, just a man that wrestled Ric Flair and is current, like he wrestled Ric Flair and he wrestled Joey Janela last year, like still on top of his game. What was it like working with George South?
Easiest thing ever, man. George South, one of the best to ever do it. If you can't work with George South, you can't work. Uh, Straight up, man. I mean, I love George South. I mean, he's a true. He's a George South is a guy who can work with anybody, and he does not allow you to put the match together before you go out there.
Yeah.
You to get better in that way. He's a true locker room leader in every way. He's a man of faith and a man who I hold in regards as having the most one. He's one of the most dignified wrestlers,
Yeah.
and one of the people that I've met in wrestling who has the most dignity about himself. He respects himself. He respects everybody that's around him, and he is a true pleasure to be around.
Yeah. Also, merch table goat.
Merch table goat. That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
That's
He like I think almost everybody we've talked to has had a George South story, and I don't think anybody's ever said a single bad word about him.
no,
So
couldn't. I mean, there's no way you could.
yeah, anytime we get to bring him up, we'd like to. So when I saw that picture, I was like, yeah, definitely have to bring this one up. This next picture, equal legend. You having a conversation with Billy Corgan. Of course, you've got Ricky Morton there as well.
Sure. This was the first time I was ever at NWA. I did a tryout match for NWA. Ricky Morton. There were a few guys there that were vouching for me, like Ricky Morton, EC3, Johnny Swinger, all guys that I had wrestled before. Ricky Morton called me one day. I was leaving the grocery store. I'll never forget it. He said, I want you to come work at NWA. You need to be wrestling on television. He said, can you be here Monday? I came on this Monday here to Skyway Studios in Nashville. He introduced me to Billy Corgan. I did that match and I was hired the next day. So I did the dark match. Like what they do at NWA is like when they do the dark matches or the tryout matches, they're basically just like testing the equipment. So they have the commentary team out there. You'll do like the dark match. Obviously they're like evaluating the talent and stuff like that. But the dark match is being filmed and everything is running like normal, right? Because they're like testing stuff. And I did that match with Joe Ocasio, great wrestler. Me and him had great chemistry. I was so thankful that they paired me with him, and we had a great match. They ended up using that match on NWA USA. And then the next day, when I came in to the TV tapings, Johnny Swinger had pulled me aside and he said, "Man, you killed it yesterday, and they're moving you up to the Power Show today." And after that, it was just like, I was working there every loop, and obviously, like I met my wife at NWA and everything else, man. So that this was this picture was the start of a lot of things.
Yeah. Were you a fan of the Smashing Pumpkins at all? I know that you are big into like the rap scene.
Well, my parents, like I came up, my parents listened to a lot of like '90s alternative.
Mhm.
So I mean, I had listened to Smashing Pumpkins a zillion times. Um, the like I'll tell you this, like the first live concert I ever went to was a Billy Corgan concert. It was a concert that he invited me and my wife to come to.
Yeah.
Um, Gave us tickets and like we went backstage and like hung out with him and all that. And that was a cool experience because that was like my first like live ever like rock and roll like
Yeah.
that I had ever been to. So shout out to him for that, for giving us that opportunity to kind of do that. But yeah, I mean, my parents used to listen to Smashing Pumpkins and all that. So I mean, you know, just having the music around and being familiar with it and liking it, a lot of what I listen to now is like '90s alternative. So like, I kind of believe too, man, that like that the music you come up on, like that's your favorite era of music.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I there's like music that like Steely Dan for like my dad really likes Steely Dan. I hated it every time I heard it. But like as I've gotten older, like Steely Dan like fucks. Like so good. Like
Totally good.
no business being that soulful for a bunch of white dudes. Like uh
100%. And
but
like photo, um, man, I mean, dude, we could go way back. I mean, like I love like Isley Brothers.
yeah.
Man, I have like, dude, if you were to ever see me in the gym, man, I could be listening to anything. Like some people might look at me and be like, "Oh, like he's probably listening to like death metal or something like
Yeah.
that." But man, dude, like I'm listening to like Madonna and like Toto, like Africa, and
Yeah.
just what is it? Daryl and
Oh, Hall of Notes.
oh yeah, man. Like I mean, you could just like throw on like the Apple's Essentials, like with their joint, like just on
Yeah,
it's just
of
every
course.
good.
That is amazing. And yeah, just that visual. Do you have a go-to pump up song? Like if you had to get like in the zone, do you have something that you kind of like is old faithful in that regard?
It's kind of new. It's 2019ish, but Cryptos in the Wind.
That get you going, get you ready.
They're actually like they're like a rock band based out of India.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I mean but their stuff is like banging. Like if you look at a lot of like the match graphics I post, I
Uh-huh.
use their uh I'm trying to think of the word, but like when a song starts and like there's basically like no words on it, like just those riffs and stuff
Yeah,
like them like as like the music like on my match graphics a ton.
that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. Uh, that seems like a weird combination, but definitely the weird combinations of music typically work out in the
Oh yeah.
favor. Um, so we've got here with you, Billy Corgan, Ricky Morton, your start of, and there is a common theme. Like all of these pictures have very, like you mentioned, you met your wife here. Like without this picture being taken, like your life is in a completely different turn. And then we kind of jump forward a little bit. We've got here your wife, EC3, Heath, and I'm
Da-
blanking on his non WWE name.
Damian Sandow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And the other guy is Dante Casanova. He's kind of like a new guy, kind of doing a lot of shots at like that NWA Exodus Pro.
Uh-huh.
Good guy. Great look, great gimmick, great gear. So to just kind of put him over a little bit here. This picture, wild story, right? So we get to Cleveland. This is the NWA Exodus Pro show. I'm working EC3 for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship street fight match. Anything goes. We do that match. Heath is also on this show. Aaron or Damian Sandow, he's also on the show. My wife's on the show. So we do the show in Cleveland um, that Friday night. EC3 has a great idea, which is we're going to do the show and we're going to leave at 11 p.m. because we're all booked. Heath, Aaron, my wife, me, EC3. We're all booked on Blizzard Brawl the next day in Wisconsin. So EC3's idea is we're going to leave right after the show when we're all dead tired, and we're going to all hop in this van that he's rented, and we are going to drive to Wisconsin, and it's going to take 6.5 hours to get to Wisconsin. We are on the road. It is pouring rain. I mean, like the rain is bad. Me and my wife are in the very back of the van, sitting next to each other. Heath and Damian Sandow, or Aaron, are sitting next to each other. EC3 is in the front passenger seat, and Dante Casanova is driving. All right. So Dante is driving like 95 miles an hour in this rain. And like my wife's looking at me and she's like, "Can you see the speedometer?" And I'm like, "I think so." I'm like, "Man, I don't know, man." I'm like,
Mhm.
guy's going like really fast. And I kind of like tap Aaron and I'm like, can you see the speedometer, man? And he was like, Aaron's just like so funny because he like looks back, he's like, Dad, like you worried? Is there something going on? He's like, this guy's driving. And I was like, I don't know, man. I was like, it's like he's going like 95 or 100 miles an hour and it's like pouring down rain, you know? And, you know, Wisconsin is like cold. There could be like black ice on the road.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, Wisconsin is just like totally trash, like when it comes to the weather. And Aaron just goes, hey. And Dante Casanova's driving. Aaron goes, hey, you ever done this before? And he goes, done what? Like drive? And Aaron's like, yeah, drive. And he goes, yeah, I used to drive trucks in the military. And Aaron just turned around. He's like, we're fine. Don't worry about it. Just go to sleep. Okay, man. So we ended up getting to Wisconsin at like 5 a.m. And we get to the hotel there where we're staying at. This is the next day. We're all hopping out of that same van. And I was just like, yo, like we should just all take a picture because like what a wild ride like we've been on for like the last 12 hours. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like when are we ever gonna be together again? Like to like snap this photo or whatever. So we just snapped the photo and it was a cool photo and it's like another one that I got like here like in the wrestling layer.
Yeah. That's awesome. What a car ride. And also like, can you imagine it would have been like the Buddy Holly crash if like you guys had crashed and it like took out like it would be like this infinite like Randy Rhoads style, like everybody would talk about it forever.
Oh, 100%. And there were a lot of like great like stories told on this ride too, you know. So a lot of good laughs and everything.
Awesome. So this next picture, I'm going to skip forward. And this kind of goes back a little bit, but the CYN, this is seems like um, I'll let you tell the story. You're obviously
Free the Narrative 2. We just wrapped up. We got done. To the left on the bottom, that's JC, Adam Shearer, Braun Strowman, EC3. Up top right, that's me. Jake Logan's next to me. That's Dutch or William from The Righteous. Weston Blake, John Schuyler. Um, Great day. We shot a ton of extra matches this day for just content. Um, we shot this like we had the ring set up in like a bar that like we rented out, and it just everything just looked totally shitty, and it was just everything just looked great on camera. Um, you know, what a day, man. I mean, like this is like another day where it was just like, man, we did something we did something cool again, you know what I mean? Like we shot this ourselves, we edited this ourselves. It looks like a total movie, like that could just like be on Netflix.
Mhm.
Um and you know, it was just all done like in-house internally, you know what I mean? Um just with everybody's like willpower and just mind to just want to do it and just do something cool. Um yeah, I mean that, and that's what this picture is. This picture is like the wrap up where we were like totally done with everything.
yeah, very
Thanks.
well behaved dog. Like
Adam's dog there. His You can't forget his dog. His dog is fantastic.
my dog would never sit for a picture like that.
His dog is very well mannered, and you know, she listens to commands and everything. She's great.
Awesome. Yeah, we tried with my dog, but it's just he's 8 now. Like this is the saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You could, but just
Right.
let him live. This next picture is a looks like another group photo at a dinner. I'll let you kind of explain that.
This was literally the night. This was right after my wedding, so this was that night. So this is me, my wife, EC3, Dave Hero. He runs Dave Hero and his wife, and his son Cal Hero. Dave Hero runs all the he runs the Blizzard Brawl show, which is like the biggest show in Wisconsin, and then he
Mhm.
runs GLCW promotion in Wisconsin. They're the biggest promotion in Wisconsin. He's booked us a ton. He officiated my wedding. Very good friend, brother. His son Cal Hero one of the main stars at OVW. Um, and it was just, man, like, just I worked with Cal for, you know, 6 or 7 months, like, in a program. Um, and this was just kind of like, we just all wanted to get together and like hang out like after the wedding and just kind of just shoot the breeze and just try to enjoy ourselves. And this group of people right here is definitely family to me.
That's great. You're wearing a Mike Tyson shirt. What are your thoughts on the upcoming Mike Tyson match?
I mean, man, listen, man, Mike Tyson still got it, right? So
Yeah,
I mean, Jake Paul's he's a good boxer. He trains hard. He's in good shape. But boxing's one of those things where, like, man, anybody could get hit at any time and like it could be over, right? So like, I mean, he could knock Mike Tyson out, or Mike Tyson could knock him
yeah,
out. There's two guys that are both training hard, and um, they both have what you would consider like an upper level of experience in the craft. And that could go either way, or there could be shenanigans where the fight just gets thrown or something. You never
yeah. Have you
depends on what
seen
kind of money we're talking, brother.
Have you seen the video of Tyson training?
Yeah, I mean
Like
the
he
guy
hasn't
total.
lost. Yeah,
And
yeah. Definitely excited to just see what happens. Like you said, anything could happen. Um, when it comes um, to the money being on the line. This last photo that I have, I want to preface it by a question. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
yes, I can. If you go to Tampa, the Tampa Studios, they have the original Sesame Street setup in there. That's where that is. It's me and my wife. This was the day after the NWA Nuff Said pay-per-view. We were doing TV tapings in Tampa, Florida at the, I don't know the name of it. I don't know the name of the studio, but it's the TV taping studio in Tampa.
Uh-huh.
And where like they shoot like, Sesame Street and like all that stuff. And like they got like this whole setup thing back there. And they said that everybody could go back there and like sit on the steps and like take pictures. And so like, of course, like that's something that like we had to do together. And um, cool thing. Never thought I'd be on
Yeah,
Sesame Street, but somehow the wrestling business got me there.
yeah. So we typically, like, or at least this is the third episode, but the common theme over the last two episodes is we kind of end on a picture of like, yeah, we talk about wrestling, we talk about all this cool stuff, but we kind of end on what matters the most. It
Sure.
seems like you meeting your wife kind of through wrestling, just like kind of talk about that experience and kind of what she means to you, because I know that's very important.
Oh, sure. I mean, me and my wife do everything together. We literally do everything together. We work out together. We go run errands together. We run our businesses together. I mean, we wrestle together. We travel together. I mean, we literally like since the day that we met, we have never been like apart. Like in terms of like, I mean, when I was, a lot of people don't know this like about me and my wife, but my wife was kind of like de facto like forced and stuck in St. Louis. And like when we met, um, you know, we obviously knew that we wanted to be together and that we wanted to make this thing work. But, part of making everything work was just um because she was stuck there. Um it was due to like a legal situation. um you know I'm not somebody that believes that like you can make long distance relationships work, like maybe like for a little bit, but
Yeah,
like you need to see somebody and you need to be around them. So like for almost like a year I would fly twice a month, or I would fly twice a week. I would fly to uh St. Louis on like a Saturday night or like a Sunday. It kind of just depended on like
mhm,
what schedule was like with my businesses. And you know and also you know wrestling too on top of that. But I would fly on either Saturday night or Sunday morning or Sunday night to her house, and then I would stay at her house, you know Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I would fly back Thursday morning to do the work that I had to do here in North Carolina, and I do that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I would do that. I would just fly back again, the next, the following Saturday. So, for almost a year, I mean, I flew twice a week, every week, to and from St. Louis. So to St. Louis, back to North Carolina, to St. Louis, back to North Carolina. And, we were able to like rectify like the situation that she was in. And she was able to move here, and, everything was able to be situated in that regard. But my wife means everything to me, man. And, without her, there is no like, gimmick. She adds so much to my gimmick.
Yeah.
Like, the like Psycho Boy is like one thing, but like when you put us together, it's like a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the Psycho Love and the Psycho Boy and the Psycho Girl, and we work so well together. And just the simple fact that we literally do everything together. Like we're together all the time. Um, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better partner, and I couldn't ask for a better friend or a better wife um, than her. So she's totally like my everything.
It's amazing. And that video you guys just put out was really awesome. Um,
Oh, the Psycho Love Machine.
yeah, yeah, that was great. What is the story behind that?
Yo, I mean, I think the story behind that is like, um, there's a movie called, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this was a movie that was a Disney movie when I was growing up. It's called Heavyweights. And
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, the fat camp.
Yeah, the Fat Camp movie, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like there is like the personal trainer who like buys the camp and like takes
yeah,
it. So like her son, like I kind of like got him to watch it like one night or whatever. I was like, oh, like this is like a great movie, like you'll love it. And he loves it now. Like we watch it like probably like 2 or 3 times a week, right? And there's a scene in Heavyweights where they're having like a dance, and it's like all these like you know girls from like, they're supposed to be like the hot girls from like the other camp, and they're like to go in there with like the like sloppy like loser like weight loss kids, right?
yeah,
They eventually like all start dancing together, and there's this guy named Lars in the movie who's like, he like runs like one of like the cabins that like he's like the whatever you would call it, like a cabin leader or something.
yeah,
And he's like the DJ, and they start playing this song. It's like the Love Machine song. And I remember sitting there one night, and I was just like, I looked at my wife, and I was like, that's what I am. I'm like the love machine, but like the psycho love machine or whatever.
yeah,
And I thought to myself, I was like, oh man, what if we like use this song, because this is like a totally ridiculous song, and like we had somebody like kidnapped, and we were like acting like we were getting ready to torture him. And I just kind of had the idea. And then I was in the gym, and like the first song that plays on the video, that song was like playing in my headphones, and I was like, oh, this would be like a great like intro to the video, where it like kind of like shows
yeah,
her, maybe she comes up to me and like whispers something, and then it opens up and we're like going wild, right?
yeah,
So one of the things that I want to do now, and shout out to my man Daniel Coleman, my camera guy, man, for filming that and editing it. He's a total pro with all the camera work. He filmed me and Blade's match at the
yeah,
DCW.
yeah,
Um, with the movie or cinematic vignettes, like I'm going to be doing a lot more of those, because I feel like the cinematic vignettes, like I feel like if we were going to like be brought into like WWF in like 96, like that's the vignette that they would be playing on TV the week prior to us showing up.
yeah, yeah. I get
And
that.
so much of that is just lost now. Like it's not even being done anymore. But what it helps with is like it helps with character development. So when you think of like Psycho Love, here's a vignette or a video that shows you exactly what that is.
Mhm.
Um, and I talk to guys about this all the time too. This kind of plays into just one other point that I want to make real quick, which is like when you when you're like when you're wrestling, like the vignettes tell a story, right? And they're
Yeah,
telling a story about your character through like the songs and through like the actions that you're doing to show off your character or things about your character in the vignette, right? And
yeah,
it's the thing in a wrestling match, right? So like if you're doing a wrestling match and you're just doing 100 moves in the wrestling match, there is literally no time for the commentators to tell a story about you. So, and this was brought up to me when I was working Latimer in the kendo stick match. There was like spots where like I just like choked him with the kendo stick, and I would like hold my tongue out and like have like the crazy bug eyes when I was doing it. And those moments when I would do that and when I would like pause afterwards, it because I wasn't immediately going into the next move, it allows and allowed the commentators to go like, oh my god, like look at this guy, he's a total psycho, like eyes out, tongue out, this guy's a total nutcase, right?
yeah,
And small pauses that you take for 10, 12, 15 seconds in between the things that you're doing allow the commentators to be able to say something about your history or say something about your character or give some kind of reason on why you're doing what you're doing so
right.
that the audience can comprehend things about your character, right? Instead of you just doing moves and just being like, well, this is, brother number 4 in the tights
Yeah,
and he's just doing moves, right?
yeah,
If you develop a character and it allows for the commentary to be able to tell stories about you in the match, and it also allows for you to do like 50% less stuff in the match
mhm.
and get the same reaction from the crowd. Or when you actually do a big high spot, you get the huge pops from the
Oh
crowd.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, of course. And I think you like the match you mentioned with you and Blade kind of shows that perfectly. It's the moments where you're ducking out of the ring or you're on the side where you're given not only the crowd like reason to dislike you, but you're giving the commentators reason to tell the story and kind of show the frustration on your opponent. Whereas if you were just to kind of keep going, it's just like an amateur wrestling match.
Right. Or it's like, dude, like I can kick you 5 times. Which one of them are you gonna sell for me? Or I can kick you one time and I can go to the crowd and you can just sell that one kick for me, and then I can go make the crowd do what I want them to do.
Yeah,
That's the whole thing. And that's not saying that like any style of wrestling is better than anything else, but you know, I like old school storytelling
yeah,
wrestling. Um and there's a lot of the new stuff that tells stories too, but I'm just saying, I'm more a big fan of like that 92, 93, 94, 95
yeah,
WWE, and that's what I try to model my matches around.
yeah. Some of the like the newer stuff is telling a story in a different way. Like there was a match between Will Ospreay and Takeshita, and it was
That was
yeah, like the way they built like it's crazy there are spots left and right, but they told a story from the beginning of that match to the very end of that match
right,
without
exactly.
having to like lean on their characters as much. So there's definitely a way to do both things, but I mean wrestling, I think Stephen Meek says it a lot is like ice cream. Everybody's got a different favorite flavor. Like
Oh yeah, and like no flavor is like wrong unless you're just really
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah. Unless it's like I don't know. I guess there really is no bad flavor of ice cream. Maybe like the ones that are like dairy free or
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. I like the Halo top stuff too, though.
yeah,
That's what I call it. It's like diet ice cream.
yep, diet ice cream for
Yeah.
sure. Uh, but yeah, wrestling, in a lot of things we've talked about today, music, wrestling, weightlifting, competitive bodybuilding, like it's all preference and it's all how you conduct yourself. I will say like you and even your wife are some of the nicest people that I've met in wrestling. Like Um, very generous with your time, and you definitely don't have to be. Like, you're successful, you're working, top names across the world. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Oh, no problem. But
Um,
you know what, man? Like, why be like that?
yeah,
Like, man, who wants to be like that? Who wants to be like just like a dick, man? You know? And I don't know. I hate to put it like that, but that's really what it is. It's just like this is how I kind of look at it, right? Is like there's a point in time where not a single person knew who I was, and not a single person cared about talking to me or wanted me to be on their podcast.
yeah,
It's like, man, when people want to talk to you and ask you about your story or just different things, or guys at a show, they want to know, like, man, how do you do this or how do you do that in the ring, or like, what was your experience like with this? Man, dude, you should take every opportunity and try to, like, you know, give as much to people as you have been given, man. And I have been very blessed in my life. And I try to give as much back as I possibly can to, anybody I come in contact with. Um, because the people that don't
mhm,
either, like, I, I don't know if it's just the mentality, or if it's just like, sometimes, like, people like move up real fast and like they get like the big head and everything. um but some people don't understand like the things that they're missing out on, like when you can, give to other people.
yeah, sure. And yeah, just thank you so much for giving these stories, not only to me but for everybody that's listening. Love to have you back on once you get some new pictures under your belt. Maybe get some of the pictures from the rap career.
Yeah, it did, bro,
Yeah.
anytime. Remind me to get you some screenshots of like the Source magazine and like all.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for holding your phone for an hour and 40 minutes. Like, that just that sounds rough. Like, we FaceTime with, I have a 3 month old, and we FaceTime with my parents a lot. And like, my arm gets tired for like 10 minutes of FaceTiming with my parents. So I can only imagine. Well, you're
Bro,
also in a lot better shape.
I'm on the horn all the time, like throughout the day, so it's
Yeah,
no problem at all, man. I'm totally.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Excited for everybody to hear this, and I hope you have a great night.
All right, thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Later.